I was standing in the hallway, suitcase half-zipped, when the message lit up my phone. Sorry, no space left. We're already 13. No, Mom. No, sorry. Just a number. As if I were an oversized bag that didn't make the cut. My thumb hovered over the screen, not answering. There was nothing to say that wouldn't come out cracked or too proud. I stared at the wall in front of me, the calendar eyed filled out with anticipation, each day marked off with a small heart, waiting for this trip. 15 minutes later, my daughter-in-law posted the first photo from Disneyland. Matching t-shirts. My son, her, the kids, and a flood of smiles that didn't notice I was missing. My granddaughter was holding the mini ears I bought her last Christmas. Underneath the photo. Family is everything. They were 13. And I was not number 14. I didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't cry. I zipped the suitcase. Not out of spite. Out of instinct. Because when you've been left behind enough times, packing becomes survival. There was a knock on the door that evening. My neighbor, Chris, from 2 doors down. Retired firefighter, widowed. He brought over banana bread sometimes. Today, he brought his silence. Thought you were heading out today? He asked. I shook my head. Change of plans. He looked at the suitcase. Want me to carry it anyway? I almost smiled. Maybe. I left the house the next morning before sunrise. Didn't leave a note. Just took my bag and locked the door. The cold air hit my face like a truth I'd tried not to hear. You're not dead, but they're already living without you. At the bus station, I bought a one-way ticket to Anaheim. Same destination. Different reason. The clerk raised her eyebrows when she saw my age and the destination. You going to Disneyland? No, I said. I'm going to remember who I was before they made me small. She paused, then nodded slowly. That's a good reason to travel. As I sat by the window, watching the city blur into fields and freeways, a thought landed heavy and cold in my chest. I was your background. Until I disappeared. And now they would notice the silence where I used to stand. The bus hummed through the dark, slicing the quiet with the low whine of tired tires on cold asphalt. I leaned my head against the glass, and for a few miles, I let myself remember. Last week, I stood in the kitchen folding shirts, tiny ones, with cartoon characters and fading grass stains, packing them into Ziploc bags the way Rachel liked. I'd ironed my blouse the night before, the one my grandson said made me look like a queen going to brunch. I was supposed to wear it on our first day in the park. They'd said, pack light, so I gave up my second pair of shoes to make room for oatmeal cookies in a tin. My granddaughter loved those. I'd printed out their e-tickets, just in case the internet failed, and bought motion sickness bracelets for Rachel, who always got queasy in the back seat. I wanted to be helpful. Not in the way that made me hover, as Rachel once accused, but in the way that made me feel I still mattered. The night before they left, I baked late into the evening. The house smelled like cinnamon and memory. I placed a note on the counter, folded beside the cookie tin. Can't wait to make memories with you all. Love, Mom. No one ever picked it up. They left the next morning while I was still asleep. No knock on my door. No, we're heading out. Just silence. And when I woke, it was as if the house had been vacuumed of sound and warmth. Their absence felt heavier than their presence ever did. Later that afternoon, I sat in the kitchen scrolling through photos on my phone. 13 of them, huddled in front of the castle, smiles wide, arms linked. Rachel's caption. When you know you're exactly where you belong. I zoomed in. My son's hand rested on his mother-in-law's shoulder. The same hand that used to grip mine when crossing the street. It stung, but not like a cut. Like something old tearing slowly, fiber by fiber. They didn't just leave me behind. They rewrote the idea of family without me in it. That night, I stood in my bedroom with the light off and stared at the packed suitcase. I'd been waiting to be included. To be wanted. They didn't forget me. They removed me. I sat on the bed, the silence swelling thick around me, and realized. This wasn't the first time. Missed calls. Unanswered texts. Holidays with half invitations. Jokes about grandma's memory when really, they'd stopped listening long ago. I pulled out the suitcase again, unzipped it, and added one more item. A photograph from a trip we took 10 years ago. When I still had a name, not just a label. And then I zipped it closed. Not because I had hope, but because I had enough. I arrived in Anaheim by late afternoon. The sun was low, hot but dull, casting a golden haze over everything. I checked into a roadside motel with a flickering neon sign and carpets that smelled faintly of bleach and regret. It didn't matter. I wasn't here for comfort. I left my suitcase by the door, washed my face, and sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in hand. I hadn't posted a thing. Not even a single, "Hope you're having fun." But they had. I opened Instagram. Rachel had tagged herself at the resort, 3 days in a row. Breakfast with Me.He. Spa time. Splash Mountain. The captions were all sunshine and closeness. Until one photo made my stomach turn. There it was, a dinner table, long and candlelit, with all of them seated in a circle of laughter. My son was in the middle, leaning in to clink glasses with a woman across from him. I recognized her, Rachel's cousin from Idaho. Barely knew her. And at the end of the caption, buried like a whisper. Our full family, finally all together. Full family. Finally. I stared at those words for a long time. Not out of disbelief, no, I believed it. But because they were too careful. Too chosen. That night, I went out. There was a small coffee shop, still open down the street. I ordered tea, sat in the corner near the window, and scrolled through the resort's website out of some foolish need to feel close. And that's when I saw it. A pop-up ad for group packages. Underneath, perfect for 14 or more. We handle everything: accommodations, transport, park planning. 14. I clicked through. A spreadsheet image appeared, showing how to submit guest names. They never expected me to come. Not once. I was never on the list. They hadn't forgotten me. They had planned around me. The server, a young woman with a silver nose ring and tired eyes, walked over to clear the table next to mine. She glanced at my face. "You okay?" I smiled without meaning it. "Just visiting." She paused. Then said softly, "You don't look like someone visiting. You look like someone deciding something." I nodded. "I am." She walked away without asking more. And I appreciated that. Back in my motel room, I deleted every saved photo from the group chat. Every screenshot. Every half-hearted, "we'll figure it out." Because I had figured it out. They didn't leave me out by accident. They made room for a life that didn't include me. And now, I was going to make one that didn't include them. The next morning, I woke early. Motel sheets creased against my skin, cheap and stiff, but it didn't matter. I hadn't slept well, but I had slept without waiting for a door to open or a voice to explain something away. I got dressed slowly, methodically. Slacks, a light blouse, my old sneakers with the worn soles. I tied my hair back the way I used to when I still worked in the school cafeteria. It gave me a sense of order. Then I walked. I didn't go to the park, didn't try to spot them in the crowd. I didn't want a confrontation, and I certainly didn't want a performance. I walked to nowhere in particular. Through streets that didn't know me. Past souvenir shops and street musicians. Through a farmer's market where no one looked twice at a woman with a canvas bag and steady steps. It felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. At a corner flower stall, I stopped. The vendor, a woman with salt and pepper hair and a tattoo that said "Faith doesn't ask," was trimming stems with quiet precision. "Looking for something special?" she asked. "No," I said. "Just something alive." She handed me a small bunch of sunflowers without speaking. I paid in cash and kept walking. By midday, I found a quiet diner tucked behind a laundromat. Vinyl booths. Pale pink menus. The kind of place where no one is trying to impress anyone. I ordered coffee and a tuna melt. Sat by the window again. 2 tables over, a mother scolded her toddler gently. "You can't just scream and expect the world to listen." The words settled over me like truth dressed as coincidence. I pulled out a notepad from my bag, the one I'd packed out of habit. I wrote one sentence. "I'm not angry. I'm done." Because that's what it really was. Not revenge. Not grief. Clarity. I didn't need to be seen. I needed to stop begging to be. No dramatic exit. No text to make them feel guilty. Just motion. Quiet and irreversible. I tore the page from the notepad and folded it twice. tucked it into my wallet next to my insurance card. I wasn't sure why. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe in case I ever forgot. They didn't turn me into a stranger. They just stopped pretending I was family. Back at the motel, I took the plastic cup from the bathroom sink and placed the sunflowers in it. Yellow petals against fake marble. It was enough. I lay on the bed, shoes still on, and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be rescued from my own life. The fourth day began with silence. Not the kind that aches. The kind that steadies you. Like the pause before a door opens. I sat on the edge of the motel bed and checked my email out of habit. A new message blinked in my inbox. Subject: Chase account notification. Sender: online banking. I opened it. Recent login from an unrecognized device. If this wasn't you, please secure your account. It wasn't me. I called the number on the back of my debit card. The man on the line confirmed someone had tried to access my account from a tablet registered to my son's home Wi-Fi. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Would you like to reset your password and lock the account? He asked. Yes, I said. And I'd like to remove all shared access. Permanently. He walked me through it step by step. I changed everything. Recovery email. Security questions. Even the backup phone number. Rachel had once helped me set it all up for emergencies. Now, that favor felt like a lock they thought I'd never notice. When we hung up, I sat still. They weren't just leaving me out of vacations. They were preparing for a future where I wouldn't speak for myself. You're not dead, but we've started rehearsing. That was the truth beneath their politeness. The steady withdrawal of respect. And I wasn't going to wait around for it to become legal. I opened another tab. Typed in the name of the estate lawyer who'd handled Derek's will. 3 rings later, her assistant picked up. I need to make some changes, I said. To my beneficiaries. Yes, of course. We can do that remotely. When would you like to schedule the call? Today. There was a pause. Then, we can fit you in at 3. I looked at the motel clock. It was 10:30. Perfect. The assistant asked if I needed time to prepare documents, review assets. No, I said. I've already reviewed everything that matters. After I hung up, I looked in the mirror. Pale skin. Faint circles under my eyes. But my mouth was set. My shoulders square. I didn't look like someone unraveling. I looked like someone done asking permission. I put on lipstick, not for vanity, but for ceremony. By 3:15, my will was rewritten. My son and Rachel were removed. I left everything to my granddaughter with one note. For the times you made me feel like I still had a place. No warning. No confrontation. Just fact. Later that night, I stood in the motel parking lot under the buzzing streetlight. The warm air pressed against my skin, and I whispered to no one. I didn't forgive you. I just rewrote the ending. I booked the train ticket that night. Not back home. Not toward anyone. Just out. Palm Springs, 2 hours east. Quiet, warm, nothing to do but exist. That sounded right. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I wanted them to wonder, because I didn't want them to think I needed an audience. Before I left, I walked 3 blocks to a copy center. Printed 1 document. My revised will. Folded neatly in an envelope marked, final copy. I slid it into a prepaid mailer and addressed it to my lawyer. I dropped it into a blue mailbox outside the diner from 2 days ago. The one where I'd ordered coffee and clarity. Afterward, I sat on the curb, legs stretched in front of me like I used to do in the 70s, waiting for protest buses with friends long gone. Across the street, 2 teenagers argued over where to eat. You always pick, one of them said. The other shrugged. Because I move first. You never move. I smiled. Because that was the difference. That was always the difference. They moved. I waited. I checked my phone one last time. 5 missed calls from Rachel. 2 from my son. All that silence and now a flood. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I deleted them. Then I powered off the phone and slid it into the motel nightstand drawer beside a half-used Bible and a takeout menu. I stood still for a moment. Just breathing. Mothers don't disappear. Until they do. At the station, I bought a cheap black Sunat from a vending cart. Cash. No name attached. The man behind the counter handed me my change and said, "Palm Springs? Not much to do out there." "That's the point." He laughed like I'd made a joke, but I wasn't smiling. The train arrived. I boarded without looking back. As it pulled away, I felt it, not regret, not anger, just release. No speech. No scene. Just one clean motion. I didn't walk away to punish you. I walked away because I finally could. Later, I sat by the window watching the desert roll by. Golden, empty, forgiving. And somewhere between here and there, I realized. They would call it selfish. Cold. Dramatic. They would rewrite the story with me as the problem. The one who snapped. The one who cut them off. But I wasn't cutting. I was choosing. I didn't leave the family. I left the role. And in its place, I chose myself. Palm Springs greeted me with dry heat and silence. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions. I checked into a small Adobe-style inn run by a woman named Lorraine. She didn't ask where I was coming from or why I was alone. Just handed me the key, a real one with a plastic tag, and said, "Breakfast's at 8. You don't have to talk to anyone if you don't want to." It was the kindest thing I'd heard in weeks. My room was small, clean, with a window that framed a courtyard full of desert plants and wind chimes. I unpacked nothing. Just hung the sun hat on the bedpost and lay down for a moment. The ceiling fan clicked softly, like a clock I finally didn't have to race. Later, I walked into town. No destination, just movement. I wandered into a bookstore with a crooked floor and a cat asleep in the philosophy section. At the counter, a woman about my age looked up from her crossword. She studied me for a second before saying, "You're not from around here." "No," I said. "Not anymore." She nodded slowly. "You're one of the ones who leave and come back different." That landed hard. I wasn't sure why. "I'm just passing through," I said. "That's usually how it starts," she replied and went back to her puzzle. I bought a book of poetry. Something I wouldn't have made time for before. Outside, the streets were quiet. Palm trees casting long shadows over art galleries and cafes. I stopped at one small, sun-bleached, nearly empty. The barista, a man in his 20s with chipped black nail polish, took my order. I asked for hot tea. No sugar. He slid the cup across the counter, then looked at me like he saw something under the surface. "You look like someone who finally said no," he said. I didn't answer. Because it was true. I took my tea and sat outside under a canvas umbrella. Watched couples walk by, dogs pulling at leashes, the occasional hum of a passing car. And for the first time in years, no one expected me to explain myself. Freedom isn't loud. It's just the absence of begging. I stayed there until the cup was empty and the sun dipped low. Walking back to the inn, I caught my reflection in a shop window. There was something quieter in my face. Something settled. Like a door that had finally been shut and locked not out of fear, but out of choice. I didn't change. I just stopped performing. And now, even strangers could see it. It didn't take them long to find me. I was sitting in the courtyard of the inn the next morning, sipping coffee from a chipped ceramic mug, when I heard the gate creak open. Lorraine looked out from the office and gave me a quiet nod, her version of a warning. Footsteps crunched on gravel. I didn't turn. "Mom?" His voice. I kept my eyes on the hummingbird flitting around a cactus bloom. "Mom, what are you doing here?" What a question. As if the world still rotated around his itinerary. He stepped closer. I could feel the familiar mix of frustration and guilt radiating off him like heat. "We've been trying to reach you." Rachel's worried. I took a slow sip. The coffee was bitter. I didn't mind. "You just disappeared." "That's not okay." I finally turned to him. He looked tired. Not broken, just inconvenienced. "You planned a trip for 13, I said. "That number doesn't include me." He looked away. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." Silence stretched between us like an old injury. "I'm your son," he said. "You can't just cut us off." That made me laugh. Quietly, bitterly. "I didn't cut you off. You just stopped noticing I was gone." He shifted, uncomfortable now. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I brought cookies for the trip," I said. Still warm when I realized no one was coming to pick me up. He stared at the ground. I watched you all in that photo, I said. The one with the caption, "Finally all together." He flinched. You rewrote the definition of family without me. I'm just catching up. He tried to speak again, but I raised my hand. Not angrily. Just final. Now you know what silence sounds like. From the one who always showed up. He stood there for a long time. Maybe waiting for forgiveness. Or a tear. Or some version of the mother he remembered. But she had left. Not in anger. In clarity. Finally, he said, "So what now? You're just gone?" "No," I said. "I'm finally here. Just not for you." He left without saying goodbye. Lorraine came out a few minutes later and sat beside me, handing me another cup of coffee. "He seemed surprised," she said. "They always are," I said. She nodded. "You don't look angry." "I'm not. What do you feel?" I looked at the sun creeping over the roof tiles. The cactus bloom beginning to close. Peace. They expected a scene. Instead, I vanished. 3 days later, they started calling again. Not just to check in. Now, it was panic. Rachel left a voicemail with a voice too sweet to be honest. "We just want to understand what happened. If you're upset, we can talk." But it was already too late for talk. A certified letter had arrived at their home that morning. I knew because the lawyer confirmed receipt. Inside, a revised will. An asset summary. A notarized letter confirming the revocation of all previous power of attorney forms. Everything clean, final, and legal. My son had no authority now. Not over my finances, not over my care. I had reassigned everything to a trust. Quiet. Simple. Locked. There would be no more helping from his end. No more, just in case, access to my accounts. No more slow erasure. They had tried to manage me like a task. I became unmanageable. The last message came from my granddaughter. A text. No punctuation. No pressure. "Grandma, are you okay?" I stared at it for a long time. Her name glowed on the screen like it always did, bright and soft. I answered. "Yes, baby. I'm okay. I'm just somewhere new now." She sent a heart. That was all. But it was enough to remind me why I had left only certain bridges standing. That evening, I walked to the post office and mailed a small package. Inside, a photo of the two of us from when she was 4. We were at a pumpkin patch. She was in my lap, both of us laughing, dirt on her cheek. On the back, I wrote, "Keep this. Remember who we are." I didn't need revenge. I didn't want an apology. I just wanted space. Space from being treated like a placeholder. Space from the subtle edits of who I used to be. Back at the inn, Lorraine handed me an envelope. It was from her friend, a local realtor. The rental I'd asked about, available immediately. Small, 1-bedroom, shaded by palms. I signed the papers without hesitation. I wasn't going back. Not to that house. Not to that role. Not to the waiting. They can't find me. Because I stopped living where they left me. The next morning, I moved in. No ceremony. No photos. Just a table by the window, a clean kitchen, and a key that belonged only to me. It's quiet here in the mornings. The kind of quiet that doesn't need filling. No television buzzing in the background. No phone lighting up with notifications. No one knocking, asking where something is, or why I didn't remind them of whatever they forgot. Just the hum of the fridge. The distant rustle of palm leaves brushing the window. I wake up early. Out of habit, I guess. I make coffee in a small French press. Sit by the table near the window. The sun comes in low and orange, like it's trying not to wake anyone. Some days I read. Other days, I just sit and listen. To myself. To nothing. I bake sometimes. Not for anyone. Just because I like the way cinnamon warms the air. Yesterday, I made a pie. It sat on the counter all afternoon. Cooling in silence. No one asking if it was for a party. No one expecting to take it home. And that, I've realized, is peace. Doing something kind without being expected to. Once, that pie would have been wrapped in foil, packed up, and brought to a kitchen where I'd be thanked and then ignored. Now it just exists. Like me. Unclaimed. Still warm. A few neighbors have waved through the fence. I nod, but I don't invite them in yet. I'm not ready to belong again. Not like before. Because now I belong to myself. The old version of me, the one who bent herself into every available shape just to fit, she's gone. I don't mourn her. I don't hate her either. She tried. But now I try differently. Last night, I stood outside barefoot, watching the stars. No porch light, no porch furniture. Just me and the sky. It made me feel small in the best way. Not invisible, just unburdened. They'll tell people I left. That I changed. They'll tell their side of the story. Let them. Let them search for answers in their timelines, in their voicemails, in the silence I left behind. I didn't slam the door. I just walked out of the room and never looked back. They'll assume I'm angry. Or broken. But the truth is simpler. I'm full. I don't need to explain. Not anymore. This morning, I pulled the pie from the counter and cut myself a slice. Sat down with it and a book of poems I'm still trying to understand. Outside, the world moved on. And so did I. Sometimes, love isn't forgiveness. It's finally ending the explanation. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.